Hamilton is already causing the first earthquake at Ferrari, and this might just be the beginning of a revolution that nobody expected to see so soon. What happened in Austria revealed a tension that goes far beyond a simple strategic disagreement and could be signaling that the honeymoon between the seven-time champion and the Italian team is coming to an end before it even really began. If you think Lewis is going to behave like a traditional Ferrari driver, get ready to discover why this partnership could be much more explosive than anyone imagined. The Austrian race should have been a celebration for Ferrari, with Hamilton securing a solid fourth place alongside Leclerc on the podium, guaranteeing a double result that put the team in positive spotlight. But the behind-the-scenes story told a completely different tale. A story that might be revealing deep cracks in the foundation of this historic partnership. During the race, Hamilton was heard openly questioning the team's strategy over the radio, creating a moment of tension that exposed something much deeper than a simple tactical disagreement. The British driver suggested he could extend his stint on the tires, stating they were in good condition, but Ferrari's response was categorical and inflexible. "Come into the pits now." And it didn't stop there, because Hamilton's reaction made it clear he wasn't at all satisfied with this decision. This wasn't just a normal technical questioning, it was a direct clash between two completely different philosophies of how Formula One should be conducted. Hamilton, accustomed to Mercedes, where he had an active voice in strategic decisions, found himself facing a very different reality at Ferrari. The Italian team, with its hierarchical culture and ingrained traditions, made it clear that certain decisions are not open for debate during the race. The situation became even more interesting when Jerome D'Ambrosio, who was substituting for Fred Vasseur in commanding the team, had to publicly defend the adopted strategy. The way he justified the decision revealed a lot about the dynamics forming within the team. D'Ambrosio explained they followed the optimal strategy, considering the McLarens were ahead and George Russell was behind, placing both Ferraris in a position where the conservative approach made more sense. But here's the detail that reveals a much bigger tension than it appears. D'Ambrosio emphasized they needed to show Hamilton the numbers after the race to prove the decision was correct. This doesn't happen with drivers who fully trust the team. When you need to convince your driver that you made the right decision, it indicates a fundamental mistrust in the process. This mistrust has deep roots. Hamilton left Mercedes, where he built a trust relationship over years of success, to join a Ferrari that has its own methods and doesn't seem willing to change them. Italian Formula One culture is notoriously rigid in its hierarchy, and historically the team hasn't always been receptive to drivers who question the wall's decisions too much. What makes this situation even more intriguing is the historical context. Ferrari has been trying for years to find the perfect balance between giving drivers freedom and maintaining absolute control over strategies. With Charles Leclerc, they found someone who, despite being extremely talented and occasionally vocal, generally accepts decisions without creating big public controversies. Hamilton represents a completely different challenge, a driver who comes from a culture where he had an active role in real-time strategic discussions. When Hamilton later admitted the team was right, this might have sounded like a diplomatic retraction. But the public disagreement had already happened, and this type of exposure can have lasting consequences on the relationship between driver and team. This dynamic reveals a fundamental issue that goes far beyond tire strategy in Austria. Hamilton arrived at Ferrari with absolute superstar status, a driver who conquered multiple championships and has a reputation for being extremely tactically intelligent. The expectation was that he would be not just the number one driver, but also an influential voice in team decisions. However, what we're seeing might be the first signs that Ferrari isn't willing to completely change its internal culture to accommodate Hamilton's expectations. But did Maranello really understand what they were hiring? They didn't just get a talented driver, they got a force of nature who won't passively accept decisions he disagrees with. Hamilton is known for pushing for improvements and constantly questioning whether things are being done in the best possible way. Formula One history is full of great drivers who had difficulties adapting to new teams with very specific cultures. Alonso had tensions at Ferrari, Vettel never completely adapted to the Italian environment, and now Hamilton might be facing the same challenges. The difference is that Hamilton has an even longer track record of success. The timing of this tension couldn't be worse. Ferrari is fighting to stay competitive against McLaren and Red Bull, and any internal conflict can harm overall performance. If Hamilton continues questioning decisions publicly, this could create an atmosphere of uncertainty that will affect the entire team. And how is Leclerc dealing with this situation? Although he hasn't made public comments, he now has to live with a teammate who clearly doesn't hesitate to express opinions when disagreeing with Ferrari. This might be creating a complex internal dynamic. It's possible Hamilton is testing the limits early on, pushing boundaries to see how far he can influence decisions. On the other hand, Ferrari might also be testing Hamilton, establishing that their culture won't change to accommodate any driver. The problem is, this type of battle rarely ends well. If Hamilton continues pressing for more influence and Ferrari continues resisting, nobody can work at their best level. Hamilton might get frustrated, while Ferrari loses the opportunity to leverage the experience of one of history's greatest drivers. Hamilton has 7 world titles and a reputation for elevating any team's level. If Ferrari can't integrate his knowledge, they might be wasting a historic opportunity to dominate the category. The probability of seeing more episodes like Austria is high, especially if Ferrari can't provide competitive cars. Hamilton doesn't accept mediocre results without questioning if there are better ways to do things. How this situation develops could determine whether this historic union will reach its maximum potential. If they can find balance between the driver's experience and the team's structure, they could form a devastating combination. But if they continue this ego battle, they might waste talent on both sides. The Austrian episode might have been resolved diplomatically, but that doesn't mean similar issues won't arise. In fact, we'll probably see even more tense situations, especially when results don't meet expectations. The big question is whether Ferrari is prepared to work with a driver who won't simply accept things as they are. Hamilton arrived with a winner's mentality, and that means questioning everything that can be improved. If the team isn't willing to listen to his opinions, we'll have a much bigger problem. Hamilton didn't change his competitive personality just because he put on the red overalls, and Ferrari won't change decades of culture overnight. This means we're only seeing the first signs of a much more turbulent journey than anyone expected. What do you think about this situation between Hamilton and Ferrari? Will he manage to adapt, or will we see more conflicts? Leave your opinion in the comments because this story is far from over. And if you want to better understand how these tensions could affect Ferrari's performance, click on the video appearing on your screen, because there I show you other signs indicating things at Maranello might be more complicated than they seem.